Welcome to our presentation on Occupational Health and Safety Awareness, Module 1 of 3, brought to you by Surge Learning. This module is suitable for employers, supervisors, and workers, and will cover the relevant legislation for health and safety at work. This presentation must be supported by your organization's policy and procedure and your province's legislation. Today, you will learn about federal occupational health and safety legislation, including the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety Act and amendments to the Criminal Code with Bill C-45, also referred to as the Westray Bill. You will review provincial legislation pertaining to the 10 Canadian provinces and 3 territories, and the governance of these regulations through the Labour Ministry, related acts, standards, and workers' compensation boards, as well as the role of health and safety associations. The federal government of Canada created the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety Act. The purpose of this act is to promote the fundamental right of Canadians to a healthy and safe working environment by creating a national institute concerned with the study, encouragement, and cooperative advancement of occupational health and safety, in whose governing body the interests and concerns of workers, trade unions, employers, federal, provincial, and territorial authorities, professional and scientific communities, and the general public will be represented. The Act established the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, or CCOHS. The CCOHS is a federal department corporation established in 1978. The CCOHS is a tripartite council, which means it is governed by 3 organizations: the government, employers, and labor organizations that represent the interest of workers, such as unions. It promotes total well-being of workers, including physical, psychosocial, and mental health. The Council also provides information, training, education, management systems, and solutions for health and safety in the workplace. In addition to the CCOHS Act, the federal government amended the Criminal Code with Bill C-45, 2003. Also known as the Westray Bill. This bill was created as a result of the Westray coal mining disaster. Prior to the disaster, workers, union officials, and government inspectors voiced serious safety concerns, over which the company instituted few changes. As a result, in 1992, 26 miners were killed after methane gas ignited, causing an explosion. After the accident, the police and provincial government failed to secure a conviction against the company or 3 of its managers for their failure to address workers' safety concerns, which resulted in fatalities in the workplace. A Royal Commission of Inquiry was established to investigate the disaster. In 1998, the Royal Commission made 74 recommendations. The findings of this commission, in particular Recommendation 73, were the movement that led to amendments of the Criminal Code. This amendment created rules for establishing criminal liability to organizations for the actions of their representatives. It established a legal duty for all persons directing the work of others to take reasonable steps to ensure the safety of workers and the public. The amendment states, "Everyone who undertakes or has the authority to direct how another person does work or performs a task is under a legal duty to take reasonable steps to prevent bodily harm to that person or any other person arising from that work or task. This includes corporations, representatives, and those who direct the work of others in federal, provincial, municipal, charitable, non-government organizations, and private companies. It means that employers and supervisors must exercise due diligence in keeping workers safe. In the event of a workplace serious injury or death, under the Criminal Code, the police and Crown are responsible for investigating and will determine whether any charges should be laid under the Canadian Criminal Code. The Ministry of Labour and/or the Workers' Compensation Board will also investigate and may impose penalties for offences. That's correct. Although it does not happen frequently, the answer is yes. Within Canada, each provincial or territorial labour department is responsible for the administration and enforcement of its occupational health and safety legislation. That means every province or territory will be responsible for their own Occupational Health and Safety Act or equivalent, which applies to most workplaces. At this provincial and territorial level, the name of the governmental department responsible for occupational health and safety varies with each jurisdiction. Usually it is called a ministry or a department of labor. That department will have established health and safety regulations and employment standards which outline requirements for health and safety in the workplace. In some jurisdictions, it is a workers' compensation board or commission that has the responsibility for occupational health and safety. Most jurisdictions work closely with health and safety associations in educating the workforce or assisting them with compliance. The outcome of this legislation is called the Internal Responsibility System, or IRS. The IRS outlines the mutual accountability of employers, supervisors, and workers to do everything responsible to ensure health and safety of workers. Everyone in the workplace is accountable for their health and safety and that of co-workers, and to do so, they must be knowledgeable about their basic responsibilities and be competent in the performance of their duties. This includes understanding the elements of the Occupational Health and Safety Program and of the Joint Health and Safety Committee. Modules 2 and 3 of this series will discuss this in more detail. Employers must be aware and understand that they are in control of their workplace. They must ensure the safety of their workers, other workers on the site, such as contractors, and other persons, such as visitors. Employers must establish a culture of safety, understand and follow health and safety legislation, have adequate first aid and medical resources available on site, and ensure managers and supervisors are trained and accountable. Employers are responsible to make sure their managers and supervisors do their job in ensuring all workers are knowledgeable about the policies and procedures, trained and supervised, know their supervisor or manager, be aware of their rights and responsibilities, and not be exposed to violence or harassment at work. A supervisor is someone who is in charge of a workplace and/or has authority over a worker. Therefore, a supervisor implements management's policies and directs the work of others by enforcing procedures to protect the worker, directing and monitoring how work is performed, deploying staff and resources, dealing with complaints, and making equipment and resources available. A supervisor may also be someone who would recommend and/or hire, fire or discipline, promote, demote, or transfer employees. A supervisor may decide the rate of pay, award bonuses, approve vacation time, or grant leaves of absence. A supervisor may have the title of chair, charge nurse, director, foreman, lead hand, manager, shift lead, team lead, superintendent, or another similar title. Like the employer, a supervisor must establish a culture of safety in the workplace and lead by example. They must do everything within their power to ensure the health and safety of all workers. This is called due diligence. To do this, a supervisor must know the Occupational Health and Safety Program and its policies and procedures. They must then advise and educate their workers about the workers' rights and responsibilities. A supervisor conducts formal hazard assessments and implements the necessary controls as identified in occupational health and safety codes. This assessment must include workers who may have been injured, along with representation from the Joint Health and Safety Committee. The supervisor communicates the hazards and required safety controls to the team, confirming that the workers have the required training, tools, equipment, and personal protective equipment to do their jobs safely. A supervisor must ensure that workers know where to find information and be available to the worker for concerns and questions. A supervisor must also ensure that their workers are not harassed or subjected to violence in the workplace. Workers have legal responsibilities under the legislation. They must attend training and follow policies and procedures, cooperate with the employer and their supervisor, take reasonable care to protect themselves and others, report concerns about harmful or unsafe work conditions or unsafe worksite, cooperate with anyone exercising a duty imposed by the OH&S legislation, and refrain from causing or participating in harassment. Workers have rights. These include 1. The right to know by receiving training and education on hazards present in their workplace and the hazard controls in place. 2. The right to refuse unsafe work without reprisal. In this situation, based on reasonable grounds, the worker should promptly report the concern to the supervisor. The supervisor must immediately remedy the hazard or inspect the situation and provide a written report with actions to be taken to the employer. The supervisor and worker should involve the joint health and safety worker representative. If the situation is not remedied after this, the worker should contact provincial health and safety authorities. Employers must contact provincial health and safety departments about work refusals. 3. The worker also has the right to participate in committees and safety programs. As mentioned, everyone must practice due diligence. In order to do so, you must be aware of relevant legislation and where to find it. Let's briefly review this. There is a ministry in charge of labor, whose overall goal is to foster safe, fair, and healthy workplaces. The ministry will have an occupational health and safety program or system, which includes the legal requirements and enforcement under an act or regulations, including the employment standards. Employment standards outline several workplace requirements, including safe working hours and obligations regarding young workers. The ministry will also work in partnership with workers' compensation boards, whose job is to manage the compensation system for injured workers. In some jurisdictions, the boards may be responsible for safety education and enforcement. Health and safety education may also include partners, such as unions, employers, professional organizations, and education centers. In Ontario, the Ministry of Labour established the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the Employment Standards Act. The acts provide for health and safety law, along with outlying compliance, inspections, and enforcement requirements. It also established the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act, whose purpose is to promote health and safety in workplaces, facilitate the return to work and recovery of workers who sustain personal injury or disease from the workplace, facilitate the re-entry into the labor market of workers and spouses of deceased workers, and to provide compensation and other benefits to workers and to the survivors of deceased workers. There are 4 safe workplace associations that provide health and safety expertise and best practices, innovative and cost-effective solutions, sector-specific products, services and information, and advice and training. One of the associations familiar to the long-term care and community care sector is the Public Services Health and Safety Association, PSHSA. Try this knowledge check. Select one answer and click Submit. That's correct. Today you learned about legislation federally and in your province. This legislation forms the foundation of your health and safety program. Thank you for your participation in our module on Occupational Health and Safety Awareness Legislation, brought to you by Surge Learning. Please continue with this course by participating in Module 2, Internal Responsibility and Occupational Health and Safety Program. We also encourage you to supplement this module with the Young, New, and Vulnerable Workers module by Surge Learning to learn about the special safety requirements for this population. Welcome to our presentation on occupational health and safety awareness and the internal responsibility system, brought to you by Surge Learning. This module is suitable for employers, supervisors, employees, and contractors. This presentation must be supported with your organization's policy and procedure and your provincial legislation. Today you will learn about the Internal Responsibility System, or IRS, which means that every person is responsible for the health and safety of themselves and their coworkers. The IRS is determined through risk management. Risk management activities that ensure the health and safety of all people in the workplace are implemented through the components of an occupational health and safety program. Our presentation will review these components. You and your organization have the shared objective of preventing injury and disease in the workplace through the Health and Safety Program. This program may be formal or informal and is legislated based on your organization's size or level of risk. For example, a social program hosted by a community's seniors center may have a low level of risk for staff, whereas caring for persons requiring lifts and transfers or who may have responsive behaviors presents a higher risk of injury to caregivers. In Ontario, you must have a formal health and safety policy when you have more than 20 workers who are regularly employed. If there are fewer than 20 employees, the Occupational Health and Safety Act still applies, and you must be able to demonstrate that you are meeting your legal obligations and people are working safely. All organizations have core components in their health and safety program which are based on legislated requirements. These components are extensive. We will provide a brief overview, encouraging you to review your provincial legislation carefully for greater detail. Core components start with a policy which must have a statement of the employer's goals or aims, outline the responsibilities and lines of accountability, have processes to ensure participation of employees, such as injured workers and the Health and Safety Committee, and have systems to identify, assess, and control hazards. The Health and Safety Program clearly outlines the required safety training of all staff upon hiring and ongoing. Supervision of staff ensures safety, and this must be identified in policy. The procedures needed to be clear on how to report, investigate, and review near misses, incidents, injuries, fatalities, and work refusals. Health and safety includes working with external resources, and the policy must be clear about cooperating and working with provincial inspectors or officers to ensure compliance. Depending upon the size of the organization, the number of workers, and the type of work, there must be first aid supplies and specific quantities of supplies as outlined by law. These supplies, the location of them, and how the employer responds to injuries must be clearly outlined in the policy. The policy must state how the records related to health and safety will be kept and used. For example, they must be made available to the safety committee or representative, the union, and the inspectors or officers. The employer must also demonstrate in its program the health and safety procedures for contractors, such as external partners in physiotherapy or equipment maintenance. The core components of the program must be reviewed in order to identify strengths and weaknesses, and to be sure that the program is current and within best practices. Incident reports, as well as incidents of injuries and/or workplace violence, must be reviewed and safety strategies implemented to prevent recurrences. A schedule of audits and overall program assessment and review, completed in collaboration with the health and safety team, offers the opportunity to make the necessary changes to the program. In Ontario, the audit and assessment of the program must be done at least annually, including a review of the health and safety policy statement and the policies and procedures to develop and maintain health and safety. Maintaining a safe workplace is a mandatory legal requirement for most employers. Each provincial or territorial occupational health and safety department is responsible for the administration and enforcement of its Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations. This is called compliance. Employers are encouraged to be self-compliant through their internal responsibility system and health and safety program. Employers should stay up to date with changes in legislation, maintain the health and safety program requirements, know the employer responsibilities and worker rights, and work closely with their health and safety associations and workers' compensation boards. Incidents cause injury, damage, or interruption to operations and are identified by their level of risk, such as serious, critical, or fatal. An incident classed as a near miss or close call is an unplanned event with the potential for injury, damage, or interruption to operations. This is an opportunity to manage risk by investigating the incident and completing a hazard assessment, implementing the necessary controls, making modifications to policy, procedures, and methods, as well as communicating the safety measures in place. Serious or critical situations or injuries include fire, explosions, chemical release, and violence. The injuries may include fractures, amputation, blood loss, or head injury, and have potential life-threatening or life-altering consequences. It is not always clear whether an injury is serious or critical. If you are not sure, contact the Provincial Health and Safety Office, as there are different reporting requirements for these incidents. A fatality is an incident resulting in the death of a worker, either immediately or afterwards. When there is a workplace injury, provide the worker with first aid and transport the worker to a medical facility if required. Investigate immediately to determine if a risk remains and remedy that risk situation so others are not injured. Anytime there is an injury or illness, the law requires that the worker and employer file a claim within a specified period of time, regardless of how minor the injury may appear. A minor injury may develop complications later. Penalties may apply for failure to submit a timely report. Filing a claim also contributes to a culture of workplace safety by supporting tracking for trends and benchmarks, which provide an opportunity to make modifications to the safety program. There are requirements for reporting incidents. Work refusals are due to potentially unsafe conditions and are reportable to the Provincial Health and Safety Authority. For high-risk, critical, or fatal incidents, reporting must be immediate and direct, usually by telephone. Claims and reports will follow at a time specified in the legislation. Serious incidents may require a direct and immediate call or within 24 hours. All other incidents need to be reported within 24 to 72 hours and include claims and any other reports. If there is a critical injury, the worker must receive prompt first aid. medical treatment, and be transported to a medical facility. The employer must remedy the conditions potentially hazardous to others. The employer must also immediately and directly contact an inspector or officer. Failure to contact is subject to enforcement and penalty. At the same time, the scene of the incident is not to be disturbed, except to attend to someone who has been injured or killed, to prevent further injuries, or protect property that is in danger because of the incident. A great deal is happening at the same time. A plan to direct and delegate is essential. In this type of critical incident, an inspector or health and safety officers will inspect the workplace, ensure other workers are protected, and ensure the post-incident response is performed, including contacting the Health and Safety Committee and union, as well as completing hazard assessment and remedies. They will also offer connections to counseling and claims services. The inspection that follows will determine if a thorough incident investigation is warranted. It is very likely that at this time the police will be on site to determine if criminal charges are warranted. Incident investigations and reports are a valuable tool in risk management. They are reviewed by provincial regulatory bodies, the employer, managers and supervisors, the health and safety team or representative, injured workers, and compared to benchmarks and best practices. Modifications are made to health and safety programs and sometimes the law in order to prevent future injury. All employees are responsible to be involved in health and safety. It is a shared responsibilities of the internal responsibility system. To ensure compliance, there is enforcement. An inspector or officer from the provincial regulatory body will inspect organizations. This may be a proactive inspection, where they will review and determine the rigor of the health and safety program. Or it may be a reactive inspection, as a result of an injury, near miss or fatality, or due to complaints and work refusal. In both cases, the employer and employees are expected to cooperate with the inspection and provide all requested documents, such as minutes, policies, and incident reports. Where there is non-compliance, the inspector or officer will determine the necessary action required. If the situation is low risk, the employer is cooperative and has a history of being compliant, the requirement may be the employer is required to prepare a plan to meet compliance by a determined deadline. If the incident involves critical injuries and fatalities, is a high-risk situation and/or involves the organization's history of non-compliance, regardless of the incident or history, the inspector or officer will issue requirements with more serious implications. These may be orders, directives, or tickets, which may include a stop work order or a stop use order, such as in the case of equipment. These are very serious violations that will be closely monitored with strict requirements to respond and comply in a timely manner. Employers, corporations, or employees may be charged with an offense and issued penalties under the health and safety laws. This occurs when compliance action plans are not met, or when serious critical injuries or fatalities occur and fault is determined during the investigation. The penalties may be administrative in the form of fines, or may include imprisonment, corporate probation, or other creative plans that may redirect fines to organizations who provide health and safety training. It is important to recall the need for due diligence that was discussed in our previous module, where individuals found responsible may be charged with a criminal offense under Bill C-45. Employees should go home from work safe each day. An effective internal responsibility system with a well-managed health and safety program to which everyone is committed will work to ensure a culture of safety and reduce or prevent injury. Today you learned about the Internal Responsibility System, IRS, risk management, and the components of a health and safety program. Please join us for our final module on Joint Health and Safety Committees. Employees should go home from work safe each day. An effective internal responsibility system with a well-managed health and safety program to which everyone is committed will work to ensure a culture of safety and reduce or prevent injury. Today you learned about the Internal Responsibility System, IRS, risk management, and the components of a health and safety program. Please join us for our final module on Joint Health and Safety Committees. Welcome to our presentation on Occupational Health and Safety Awareness, Module 3 of 3, brought to you by Surge Learning. This module is suitable for employers, supervisors, and workers, and will cover the requirements for joint health and safety committees. This presentation must be supported with your organization's policy and procedure and your province's legislation. Note: requirements for joint health and safety committees are detailed and extensive. This presentation serves as an overview only. Today, you will learn about joint health and safety committees as required by provincial occupational health and safety legislation. You will understand the governance of these committees, the requirements for a committee or representative based on the number of employees in an organization, the purpose, membership, and rules of procedure for committees, as well as annual committee evaluation. It is important to note that when an organization has fewer than the required number of employees for a joint health and safety committee, the employee must have a health and safety representative who performs the same functions as a committee according to legislated requirements. A Joint Health and Safety Committee, JHSC, is a forum for bringing the internal responsibility system into practice. The committee consists of labor representatives chosen by workers or the union, and management representatives chosen by the employer. The committee meets on a regular basis to deal with health and safety issues in the workplace. In Ontario, the Joint Health and Safety Committee, or JHSC, is required for employers with more than 20 employees, or when a designated substance, such as silica, is in use, or when designated by the minister. For 20 to 49 employees, the committee must have 2 certified members, one each from the worker and management groups. For 50 or more employees, the committee must have at least 4 committee members, with the requirement for 2 certified members, one each from workers and management. The training for certification is provided by a Workplace Safety Insurance Board approved trainer. The Joint Health and Safety Committee is governed by the Ministry of Labor. The purpose of joint health and safety committees is to have worker and employer representatives work together to promote workplace health and safety. They identify hazards, implement safety controls, deal with complaints, participate in and ensure incident investigations and inspections are completed, as well as consult with workers related to complaints and work refusals. The committee also has a role in consulting with workers and the employer, making recommendations on safety, education, and policies and procedures that promote compliance with legislation, as well as participating in the program review. The overall number of members reflects the organization's level of risk, size, distinct work functions, number of unions, shift workers, and so on. For example, it may be mandated to have 4 members, but the organization's level of risk is high, and they may choose to have 6 members. Some of these members may also be union representatives. An organization whose primary business is to care for older adults may choose to have a worker who is a direct care provider and also a union representative. Members must be able to carry out their duties, attend meetings, be knowledgeable of workplace and functions, and be able to work cooperatively. A committee has 2 co-chairs, equally comprised of worker and employer representatives who alternately chair the committee meetings. Having alternate members also improves the effectiveness of the committee so that members who are not able to attend are replaced. A committee may need to invite guests to a meeting. The guest has the expertise to advise on unique safety precautions. They do not attend the entire meeting but are on the agenda at a prescribed time. Mountain View Continuing Care Home has 200 residents. The employees are represented by 2 unions, and collectively they care for a high-risk population of persons suffering from mental illness and addictions. The staff are trained in managing responsive behaviors, which may escalate to violence. The representation on their Health and Safety Committee needs to consider the different departments and workers, the unions, shift workers, and managers. For example, membership in the committee includes the nursing department and direct care staff, environmental services, dietary and food services, maintenance, administration, and programs and activation. Also, the committee has identified the need for representatives who are experts in mental health. The employer supports and works with the Joint Health and Safety Committee and consults with the committee on such things as health and safety programs and policies, personal protective equipment, WMIS, young workers, and working alone. They work with the committee on hazard identification, investigations, inspections, and controls. The employer is required to respond to safety recommendations from the committee within a specified time. The employer makes workers aware of the Joint Health and Safety Committee and how to contact them. The employer also provides reports and statistics to the committee, including incident reports, health and safety complaints, investigations, and injuries. They must also provide equipment, space, clerical support, and ensure paid time for members to attend meetings. The rules of procedure, also called the terms of references, outline how the committee is formed and functions. This includes defining and outlining their scope and mandate, composition, selection, and terms of office of their members. This criteria is outlined in the legislation. The rules also outline the duties of members and the alternates, the standardized meeting agenda and meeting minutes distribution and posting requirements. Committees must also create and safeguard reports, collect and analyze statistical data, and develop processes for record-keeping and safe storage of records. They have processes for participating in and making recommendations related to regular inspections and incident investigations. Communication with the employer is an essential part of the teamwork and is required in order to ensure implementation of the health and safety program. A Joint Health and Safety Committee will encourage workers to resolve complaints or work refusals with their supervisor first. The committee will need to get involved if there is no resolution. In addition to working with the workers and employer, the committee works closely with provincial health and safety authorities, such as requiring assistance with work refusals or unresolved safety concerns. The committee membership also accompanies the provincial inspector or officer on workplace inspections. Decisions need to be made as part of committee work. The rules of procedure should outline how decisions are to be made, such as by consensus or by majority. Before decisions are made, a committee must have a quorum. A quorum requires that at least half of the members are in attendance at the meeting, including at least half of the worker representatives. Committees also determine the choice of training courses to be made available to members. This may involve a member having mandatory time off with pay to attend required certification or recommended specific training. In the case of Mountain View Home, the committee would look at incident reports and determine if violence in the workplace training is the key educational requirement. At times, rules of procedure are not working well and the committee will need to make amendments. Let's consider this scenario. Conrad, the nursing manager, and Esther, a housekeeper, are co-chairs of the Joint Health and Safety Committee. They sent an agenda in advance with the date, time, and place of the meeting along with agenda items. The members receiving this information arrange paid time to attend with their supervisors, prepare their thoughts related to the agenda items, and may decide to request additional items be added. They attend the meeting as scheduled. Conrad and Esther use an agenda and minutes template to be sure that they cover all items, and this is consistent for all meetings. Agenda templates are available online. Generally, an agenda will include roll call, review and adoption of minutes of the last meeting, a review of incident reports and injuries, inspection status, and investigation results. Members will then review old business and any new business related to identified safety concerns, make recommendations to address these issues, and needed education sessions for members and employees. The committee will invite expert guests as required and schedule workplace inspections and program reviews. Conrad and Esther will ensure that the clerical support person is attending to take detailed minutes of the proceedings, issues, decisions, and action items with clear accountability and timelines. A copy of the minutes is provided to the employer, and the last 3 meeting minutes are posted for the employees. The Joint Health and Safety Committee must also evaluate their own committee effectiveness and complete a written report according to a predetermined schedule and criteria as outlined in the legislation. This may include goals aligned with the strategic plan, the Health and Safety Program policies and procedures, the Emergency Response Management System, new worker orientation, recertification of committee members if needed, education, rules of procedure processes, meeting schedule and membership and attendance, and distribution and posting of meeting minutes. Today you learned about the provincially legislated Joint Health and Safety Program, its governance and membership, the roles and responsibilities as outlined in the Rules of Procedure, and the requirement to evaluate the committee on the schedule noted in the legislation. Thank you for joining us today for our final module on Occupational Health and Safety Awareness, Joint Health and Safety Committees, brought to you by Surge Learning. Today you learned about the provincially legislated Joint Health and Safety Program, its governance and membership, the roles and responsibilities as outlined in the Rules of Procedure, and the requirement to evaluate the committee on the schedule noted in the legislation. Thank you for joining us today for our final module on Occupational Health and Safety Awareness, Joint Health and Safety Committees, brought to you by Surge Learning.